Before we get into today's episode, we wanted to talk about a sponsor of today's episode, which is Chuy's Local Marketing Solutions.
Is there?
Yeah, he is currently working with us as a violinist, but he also has his own business. And he wants us to let you guys know whether you're starting a new business, mariachi, or thinking about updating your brand. Chuy's Marketing can provide the visual designs for logos, business cards, or any promotional asset that will make your business stand out. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Sometimes you're starting like a mariachi group or starting anything business. You don't have a proper logo, that happens, we can only go so far with Microsoft Paint. You know what I mean? Just kind of draw out whatever you can or have your cousin draw something out. It's not always the most professional thing. You know what I mean?
And sometimes he'll even take pictures of the group, right?
Yeah, so he'll do everything for your
Yeah.
business. He'll rebrand your whole mariachi, or just if you're barely starting out, he'll take pictures, he'll Photoshop logos, he'll do full on portraits. He pretty much does everything. He actually works with us. But if you visit at Chuy's Marketing on Facebook or Instagram, there's more info on there. And as a bonus, Texas residents get free shipping on any purchase of $100 or more. So if you're in Texas, free shipping. If you live in Cali, Arizona, or Florida, anywhere else, you're going to have to pay for shipping. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, it's worth it. Like he makes me and Sam look good.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to do. Yeah.
I mean, he does all our cards for our group. So if you look on there, we actually look kind of decent.
Yeah.
And I know I don't look like this in real life. So he's doing...
True.
He's doing some...
We're catfishing.
Yeah, he's doing some voodoo good shit on here. So whether it is for your business or whatever, hit him up. I mean, for cards, business, whatever, he's got you. So Chuy's Marketing, quality branding for your quality business. Hit him up at Chuy's Marketing. Check us out.
Sir.
Enjoy today's episode.
Yeah.
What am I plugging this into?
It's just an audio jack, aux. Should have a connection somewhere.
Hey.
I don't think you're saying anything.
Well, we can hear you now.
Yeah, you sound a lot better now.
I can hear mine on this side.
Only on that side? What about when you start talking, Dr. G?
Okay, so this is what they can see right here. Right?
Okay.
So if you want to move it,
I'm just as ugly that way as the other way.
All right.
What's up, you guys? We are back.
Hey guys, how you doing?
How are you guys doing? This is episode number 24. We always
Yeah.
got to make sure, because what we end up doing is we forget every episode. We say that we forget what episode we're on. We're on episode 24.
Yeah, it's because I don't listen to a podcast, so I
Yeah.
don't even know what number it is.
We don't even check ourselves. We just kind of put them out.
I hear my voice. That's why.
Yeah, it's your voice. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, today is a great day. Today's a great day. It's a great Monday. We have another guest. I know we had a guest last week, but we're just knocking them out with these guests, man.
Yeah.
This one has been pretty important to us, just because kind of what we've explained as far as the podcast before. We've kind of been bringing people that have been with us along our own personal musical journey, or just people that have inspired us as musicians and stuff like that. But
Right.
for the longest, I've been asking Victor about this because I didn't have his number. But I was like, hey, Victor, like, you got it. You got to make this happen. This is all up to you. So
And
I
I
gave
kept
him.
forgetting, but I got it down this time. I got it.
Yeah, he did it. So without further ado, our next guest is really the person that, in a way, started all this, because we as mariachi musicians, we've been playing for a while. But from the very, very beginning, I wouldn't be playing guitar if it wasn't for this man.
Yeah. Also,
You know,
the way that we play too.
Exactly. So this was it was a very good experience, learning from this man. And what we wanted was to share him with you guys, so that he can not only give his experiences as an educator, but also as a mariachi historian.
Yeah, because honestly, a lot of you guys need this. You need
True.
to know, like.
Yeah, and we were blessed as kids that we didn't understand it till later, but as kids we got taught a lot. And we retain some of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because as a kid, you got a
you
pea-sized
just kind
brain.
of want to go play soccer and do all these things,
I mean, that sounds like you. I didn't play soccer too much.
Well, point is, you want to be doing stuff.
Right. So without further ado, our next guest is Mr. William Gradante, or better known as Dr. G.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing, Dr. G?
I'm doing great, guys.
How are
You
you?
were a baseball man, right, Sammy?
Yeah, I'm baseball. That's what I'm saying. I was never fast enough for soccer, man. The only reason you run in baseball is if you hit, and if you don't hit, then you're good. You just end up just standing there and you walk back to the dugout. But how are you, sir? I mean, it's been, like you said, it's been a while since we've seen you.
Well, been dealing with COVID. Got
Right.
about 5,000 books here to entertain me, and I've been doing that, working in my garden,
That's
playing some
great.
guitar, walking 3 miles every morning, and
Oh
just
man.
enjoying the heck out. I mean, I had the best job in the world, but
Mm.
I now have something even better. I don't have to leave my house, and I can, now I can listen to you guys on podcasts.
Oh
Oh
no.
no.
Don't do that.
Wait a minute.
Just a brief history on you. Like for us anyway, you were our first mariachi teacher in middle school. You taught at JP Elder for, you just let us know, 37 years in that program. But you got to see us both as kids. I mean, we still act like kids, but you got to see us as kids, like coming up 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so
Now we're just hairy kids.
now we're just hairy kids. According to you, we got hair now. But that's the only difference. We're still the same kids in a way, you know what I mean? But you got to see us in our musical journey from the very, very beginning, and
Well,
not,
I
uh-huh.
also had two of your sisters as well as one of your brothers.
Right. Yeah. All my siblings went through this same program in JP Elder, starting in 6th grade. I mean, real quick, just give a brief history on yourself. Just so I kind of mentioned already, you were there for 37 years. Who are you, Dr. G?
Well, I grew up in the south end of Hartford, Connecticut, which means I'm Sicilian, and went to college in Vermont on a soccer scholarship, Victor.
Nice.
And then I got a scholarship to come to Texas to study anthropology, even though I had no anthropology as an undergrad, except I did have an opportunity to spend 6 months living in a little pueblito in Colombia.
Oh
And
man.
that was it, man. I was going to be an ethnomusicologist. So I got scholarship to come down to Austin and was there for 5 years, continued playing soccer. I was at the best anthropology program in the United States between 75 and 80.
Mhm.
And I studied at still the best Latin American studies library in the world. I mean, you can get more books in Austin at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American collection than you can in Mexico City or Bogota or
Wow.
Rio or anywhere else.
Mhm.
People come from all over the world, from Latin America to study there.
Wow.
So that was an experience of a lifetime.
And it's like you said, you have what, 5,000 books in your house, and you said half of them are probably mariachi right behind you.
Oh, that's not half. That's a tenth. But
Oh man.
yeah, um, yeah. And in 1977, I was just walking across campus. I saw a ballet folklorico performing, and I couldn't believe it. They were dropping a needle on a record player,
Oh.
and I thought, man, this we could make a band that could play this.
Hmm.
And long story short, that's what we did. And my professor, Americo Paredes, who is the most amazing intellect I'd ever run into, he asked me after a class, hey, do you think you could start a mariachi group here? It's been my dream. I'm going to retire soon. This would be my legacy to the University of Texas. And I said, sure. What's a
Let's do
mariachi?
it.
And he said, oh man, you paisans from Connecticut, he said, look, you need to go to Guadalajara. I want you to buy a guitarrón and a vihuela. I'll pay for them. And if you can get the students, I'll make it double listed as an anthropology class for music majors
Mhm.
and as a music class for anthropology majors. You get to spend Monday night for 3 hours just jamming over at the music building.
Oh man.
And so we did that. We went to Guadalajara, buddy and mine, and we got the guitarrón, we got the vihuela. Um, from the guys in the plaza, we learned how to play más o menos. Um,
Did you play guitar at
and
this
we just,
point?
sorry?
I said, did you play guitar at this point?
Oh, yeah, I was a guitar player since 8th grade.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was a budding Carlos Santana. Yeah, that's where I first heard Latin music and
Mhm.
just, well, in college, a professor came in, a visiting professor came in from Indiana University
Right.
and said, there's this thing called ethnomusicology. You can study Latin music for a living. And I went, are you kidding me? Um, so yeah, I was just blown away. Like I said, I got an opportunity to go to Colombia, and I wasn't looking for Colombia. I was looking for
Mhm.
somewhere in Latin America, not to study Bach and Beethoven, but
Right.
to study popular music, folk music.
Right.
And I mean, being in a little village where no one spoke English was great. Uh, you know, the Colombian people were so nice, just
Right.
trying to figure out what the hell I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then with Americo Paredes, he was a musician. He was an amazing intellect, and he's known as the godfather of Mexican American folkloristics. He's from Brownsville and studied the culture of what he called a third country, not Mexico, not the United States, but the Valley.
Oh,
Wow.
And he had us all in classes. There were a bunch of Chicanos from. There was no PhD in folklore in California in those days, so all the Chicanos came to Austin, and we got a bunch of them together, and we got a bunch of other people that wanted credit for playing their violin. I got 5 or 6 violin players from this. I mean, they were 20-year-olds, but or
right.
18-year-olds, but they played in the Austin Symphony.
Hmm.
So we sounded like a bunch of gringos playing mariachi for quite a while. Um,
Which in a way you kind
actually,
of were. I mean, because I think the biggest thing for me was finding out, like you said, you're Sicilian, you're Italian, right? Like
yes,
you're,
that's correct.
yeah. So like for me, I always thought you were like straight Mexican when I was a kid.
That's true. That's what I thought. And
And then yeah, like as a kid, I was like, oh, and then when you told us you were, oh, sorry about that. But when you told us that you were Italian, I was like, whoa, like it just blew my mind because I
yeah,
was like, as a kid, you don't really visualize anything other than like, oh, especially because all you see around JP Elder for us was Hispanics. So like you're not exposed to too many,
yeah,
people outside of Mexico, Hispanics and stuff like that. So when I found out
And
you as an
certainly not people that are not Mexican that are interested in Mexico.
exactly.
mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean. Like you were an Italian, literally teaching us mariachi, teaching mariachi history and all that stuff. For you to have an interest in that, like, just blew my mind. I was like, what? Like, there can be other people that are Mexican that aren't Mexican, like
Yeah.
mariachi. I was like, what? That was me as a kid. I had never seen anything like that. So, so you were
Well, but it's
in
not just kids; it's adults feel the same way.
right,
I mean, 2 years ago, well, a year ago before COVID, I was playing at Papacitos. I played in restaurants for 40 years,
right.
and for 40 years, people say, "Are you white?" And I would like open my shirt a little bit and say, "Jesus, you're right, I am." Something stupid.
Yeah.
But they sort of have the feeling that if you're not born in Mexico City or Guadalajara or something,
Hmm.
you can't have a love for Hispanic music. You can't love playing mariachi.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I just sort of fell in love with Mexican music in
Right.
Austin. We made the mariachi. We started learning how to make arrangements. I mean, I had been a music major as an undergrad, so I knew how to do that.
Hmm.
I had never done it, but no, we had a blast.
Hmm.
Our first international gira, we got a chance to go to Brownsville for Charro Days. I don't know if you guys have
Oh,
heard of
I've heard
that.
of that. Yeah,
You've heard of that?
It's a big festival. Brownsville is like
yeah,
the
yeah.
southernmost point in the United States and
Yeah.
southernmost in Texas. And we had been playing at Guadalupe Church and St. Julia's Church in Austin.
Hmm.
The priest said, "I got you guys a gig in Brownsville." So we were
Wow.
all terrified. And I mean, about 2/3 of us spoke Spanish, both
Yeah.
non-Hispanics and
Right.
Hispanics. Some of the Hispanics did not speak any Spanish.
Hmm.
We took the St. Julia's bus. I mean, the priest drove us down to Brownsville.
Hmm.
We played in the parade in the snow in Brownsville, believe it or not. We played the jalapeno eating contest. We backed up a million ballet folclóricos.
Hmm.
And then they said, "We're going across the border to Matamoros."
Like,
And
what?
we said, wow, this is going to be a gira internacional. We're going to really play for Mexicanos. And of course, like I said, we were built to back up the Valle Folclórico. So we played La Culebra, La Negra, Guadalajara,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We did our set. We're walking off the stage, and the announcer says, Señores y señoras, ahora para el artista invitado de la Ciudad de México, el ídolo de México, Vicente Fernández. And we're like, holy crap, it's Vicente. This is right after Volver, Volver came out.
Oh,
And he comes up to me and he says, you're the leader of the group, right? And I go, yeah. And he says, hey, my group, they were in a bus. I came by plane, but my group was in a bus, and the bus broke down between here and Monterrey. Can you guys back me up? And we're like peeing our pants. So one of our trumpet players, I was playing guitarrón and my buddy was playing vihuela.
Mm-hmm.
We said, we can back you up on Volver, Volver.
Mm-hmm.
So we played it 4 times in a row.
No.
And he sang it 4 times in a row with us to the screaming people of Matamoros. And because that was the only song that we know that had vocals
Right.
and that he sang.
Yeah, because everything else was dance music. Like you said, you were backing up Ballet Folclóricos.
It worked, during the festival, but,
Right.
it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And the name of the group was Mariachi Paredes, which I thought would be a good idea to name it after our director.
Right.
Mariachi Paredes de Tejastitlan.
Tejastitlan.
And I said to Vicente, I said, would you do me the honor? Would you sign my guitarrón?
Mm-hmm.
And he says to me, ¿Cómo se llama el mariachi? And I said, somos el mariachi Paredes de Tejastitlan. And he looks at me and he says, ¿Tejastitlan? Ay, ustedes, qué cabrones. So I have the honor of have been called a cabrón by the best of them.
by Chente.
By Chente. And he autographed my guitarrón.
Well, at least he did it.
Do you still have that guitarrón?
Do you still have that guitarrón?
I'll tell you what, that was January 79, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And in August of 80 is when I got invited to come to Fort Worth to start the mariachi program.
Mm-hmm.
No one had ever had an in-school mariachi program anywhere. So I had no guide to follow.
Right.
But I met a fellow down in Austin who started a group. He was the orchestra teacher, taught full orchestra, and then he taught 1 class of mariachi. And we were in Austin one year, probably 82, 83.
Right.
And my group played. I mean, I brought North Son and I brought Elder like always, and he had his middle school and his high school group. And I looked up on the stage. I looked at the guitarrón and I said, man, that looks like my guitarrón. That looks like the guitarrón that I used to play.
Mm-hmm.
And, it had the pegs.
Right.
I mean, no mechanical. I mean, it was killer to try to keep it tuned.
Yeah.
And after their performance, I went backstage and I said to the kid, I said, can I see your guitarrón? And I looked at it and I said, it is. This is my guitarrón. And he goes, no, this is my guitarrón. My mom bought it at a pawn shop. And I said, oh, no, I didn't mean it was mine. I used to play it.
Uh-huh.
And I said, he goes, how do you know it's yours? And I said, look at this right here. And down on the sounding board, down about where your right hand would be extended, it says, con mucho afecto, su amigo Vicente F. And he goes, yeah, somebody scribbled something on it. I said, dude, this guitarrón was signed by Vicente Fernandez. And he was like, are you kidding me? And he said, my mom bought it in a pawn shop. And I said, well, it's not a great guitarrón, but it's got his autograph.
Yeah.
So, Victor, to answer your question, it was, last I saw, it was in the hands of a freshman in like 82. It was a terrible guitarrón. I'm sure he's not playing it anymore. I don't guess anybody's playing it.
Well, do you have a picture of it? I think you should, because you've told that story before, and I think you had a picture of it, no?
I have a picture that appeared in Texas Highways magazine a year or two later, saying, kind of as publicity, come down to Brownsville for Charro days.
Right.
And here's this gringo in his mariachi suit and with a guitarrón. But I don't remember if the autograph is in the picture. You know what I mean? They were more interested in the traje than the guitarrón.
The white dude in the
I have the picture in the magazine. I don't know if it's got the signature.
Okay.
Okay, so after the guitarrón, so you were in Austin for a while. So you said you got called up to come teach in Fort Worth. How did that go down?
Actually, I just spent like 3 weeks in Guadalajara
Okay.
looking for instruments, looking for sombreros, looking for moños, looking
Hmm.
for
Straight,
trajes.
straight from the source.
Yeah, and just hanging out all day long in the plaza,
Hmm.
and had driven all night getting back to Austin.
Hmm.
Mm.
And at 8 o'clock in the morning, when I was hoping to sleep in, I got a call from the Texas Commission on the Arts. And Rick Hernandez, who was the head of that organization at the time,
Hmm.
said to me, "Hey, are you the guy that directs the mariachi at UT?" And I said, "Yes, I am. What kind of, you interested in a gig or something?"
Uh-huh.
He says, "No, I'm from the Commission on the Arts. Somebody from the Fort Worth Independent School District has called us, and they're interested in starting a mariachi music program for middle school and high school kids.
Hmm.
And would you be willing to teach it?" And at the time, I was in my fifth year in Austin. I had finished all my my comprehensive exams,
Hmm.
finished all my coursework. I was just working on my dissertation. And I was playing 7 nights a week in Austin at restaurants. So, needless to say, I was doing more playing than I was writing.
Mm.
And I say, you know what? If I go to Fort Worth, I've never been there. I don't know a soul up there. Maybe I'll just go up there, do the gig. It was supposed to be like an 8 month, 7 month gig,
Hmm.
half time. Um, 15 hours a week, I had to be in direct contact with students, and another 5 hours a week, I had to be in a community center to whoever showed up.
Hmm.
And I say, this will be great. This will give me time to finish my doctorate. I'll go home to Connecticut. Though, honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do in Connecticut after I had a PhD in
Mm.
anthropology.
Yeah.
But decided to do it, came to Fort Worth, and realized there's no instruments, there's no trajes, there's no arreglos, there's no nothing.
Oh
There's
man.
not even a
Nice.
classroom.
Oh, man.
So we shared the band room with a band teacher who really didn't want me there.
Right.
Mm.
And of course, the Forward Star Telegram and every other newspaper and every TV station wanted to take a picture of us doing something that nobody else was doing.
Hmm.
And she just did not deal with it very well. And, but anyway, she went to another school the next year, and they gave us the custodian's room.
Oh,
So we
a
cleaned up the
closet.
custodian's room. We literally shared it.
Yeah.
I don't, you guys probably remember the stairway,
Uh-huh.
the door that goes out of JP Elder that heads to the portables,
Okay.
the main floor of JP Elder that
Mm-hmm.
goes to the portable classrooms.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
If you take a left right before that, there's a stairway, a side skinny stairway that goes up to the second floor. And
Yeah.
underneath the stairway, there's a room that has a padlock on it, and that was my classroom.
Oh
Wow.
There
man.
was a 40-watt bulb in the ceiling. All the broken lockers in the school were in my classroom. So was all the toilet paper, all the cleaning supplies, the mops, the buckets.
Well,
I
at
mean,
least
we
you were
shared
fully
the room with the
stocked.
All
custodians.
right.
You were fully stocked, if anything. So that's a good thing.
Well, if we still had that toilet paper, it was perfect for COVID. But
That's
Right.
true.
um,
That's very
there
true.
was actually a sewer in the middle of the room too, where they
Oh
dumped out
man.
the dirty water.
Oh my god.
So I rounded up about 15 chairs,
Hmm.
and I went to a bunch of travel agencies and got posters of Mexico, and
Hmm.
we just taped them up on the wall,
Hmm.
and we just did what we did.
Right. We started
And
mariachi. Yeah.
and I'll tell you what, one day we were contacted by Los Bajitos of Grand Prairie Lowrider Club,
Oh,
and
okay.
they said, "Look, we're having a lowrider happening. Can you guys come out and play?" So I said, "Sure, we'll be glad to." So we went out, we played, and a reporter from Channel 8, her name was Maggie Rivas. I'm sure
Nice.
she's long gone, but she
Mm.
said, "What the heck is this? Who are these kids?" And I said, "This is my class from JP Elder."
Hmm.
And we had some Northside kids, and we had eighth grades and ninth grade at that
Right.
point. It was our second year.
What year is this already? By this point, the 80s,
81
right? 81. Okay, cool.
was our second year. And the lady said, "I got to see this.
Hmm.
Can I come out to your classroom?" I said, "Sure." When do you want to come out? She goes, "Can I come out Monday morning?" And I said, "Sure, that would be great." We get to the door, open the door, and I said, "I don't want to get in trouble with the school district because we're glad we have our own room.
Hmm.
It ain't much to look at,
Hmm.
but we call it home." She interviewed me, and she was asking me, "How does it feel to have your own room?" And I was saying, "It's wonderful. We have our own room. Kids
Hmm.
can hang out during lunch, after school, before school, this and that."
Hmm.
Um, but he's filming the buckets of dirty water, the Brillo pads,
well,
the
that's not
paper
good.
towels, the toilet paper, the broken backboards from the gym.
Right.
Oh,
All the junk from the school was in that room. And 2 days later, I showed up and my key didn't fit the padlock anymore. And I went up to see Mrs. Hara, the principal, and I said, I don't know what's happening, but my key doesn't work. And
Right.
she said, well, the superintendent saw Channel 8 news the other night, and they're building you a room.
And that's what it
And
took.
well, that's all it took.
That's all
It took a year. They still didn't give us uniforms, instruments, or anything else.
Right.
We had all these spare chairs that nobody else wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but we were on the stage for the next rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came back in, they actually gave us the custodian's room, and they knocked down a wall, so we had a little bit more room than that.
Right.
We painted a Mexican flag on one wall. We painted some pyramids on the other wall, the pyramids from El Tajín,
Mm-hmm.
and we just made it our room. And we had that for years until where were you guys? Were you guys near the cafeteria?
we were in the annex.
We were in the attic. We started in the
You were
annex.
both okay.
Yeah,
We were in
both
another
already.
room when they tore down the old cafeteria, and
Mhm.
then we went to the annex after that.
Okay.
So
And that's where
band
it
hall,
was. Yeah. Uh-huh.
custodian's room, new room. They made another new room as part of the old cafeteria,
Right.
and then annex.
Okay.
Mm.
Man.
And
Wasn't
in
the
those
annex room
days,
like a gym?
Go ahead.
Right?
the annex was the girls' gym.
Right, because that
Oh.
it's a big room, and I'm like, this looks like a gym when I walked in.
Oh, the
Remember
mariachi
that?
room? Yeah, it
Yeah.
is big. Oh, you did say that it was a gym
Yeah.
because it's
Well, look at the
big.
giant windows, right?
Right, yeah, and they're
It looks
underground.
just like a gym. It's all
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
natural
you
light.
I mean, you put some hoops up and you play basketball in there. Yeah, that's true.
They
Very true.
did.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like it.
As a matter of fact, one day they asked me to go over and get somebody, and they told me where to go. I'd never been in that building,
Right.
and I walked in the room and suddenly realized I was in the game, because if you were in the room, it was inbounds. Fortunately, nobody passed me the ball or anything, but I just kind of
Right.
ducked out. But yeah, that was the girls' gym.
Right. Okay. So
So,
they ended up giving you that room later on down after the sewage, and they were like, okay, this is probably.
well,
a
they
good place
condemned the
to-
building.
Oh wow.
The building was condemned for like at least 5 years, maybe 10.
Oh man.
And
For them to be like, maybe this isn't the best place to teach kids mariachi music.
well, not with a concrete floor, concrete wall, concrete ceilings. Not for acoustics, you know.
I don't think that's good for a jail either. I mean, that sounds pretty bad.
Wow.
So what
Hey, but
ends
it
up
was
happening?
great. We had a giant room. We had enough room for all the instruments.
Right.
I was having 35 kids in a class, 40 kids in a class.
Mm-hmm.
I could barely fit 25 in the old room.
Right. Exactly.
So,
This is in the 80s at this point, like you said. So there was no other mariachi programs in Texas or in the U.S. at this point.
we started by going to the San Antonio Mariachi Conference. It was so badly organized. Vargas was there, but it was very badly organized.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke Castro, who started the group at Travis High
Mm-hmm.
in Austin, started having a festival down there. He got a federal grant, and he got Mariachi Cobre to come.
Okay.
Wow.
So he said, look, he literally jacked me up by my collar one year. And he said, you guys should have won the competition this year. And I said, dude, I'm not here for the competition. I'm here for the kids to have a good experience, learn some new songs, but more than
Mhm.
anything, see the rest of the people playing mariachi music.
Mhm.
He said, look, how many kids you got? And I said, I got 314. He said, you bring 300 kids down here. I've got 200. He goes, we got a conference. He says, I think I can get Mariachi Cobre to come. They had just moved to Disney World.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I think I can get them to come. If you guys will come,
Mhm.
give us $15, $20 a head.
Yeah.
We got a conference. So we did that for several years. Then we went to Tucson. I wanted to get the kids to see America, to see someplace besides good old Fort Worth.
Go forward.
And when we went to Tucson, we met youth mariachi groups, but they were in after-school programs, paid for lessons in the LA area, Riverside and other areas around LA.
Not so much implemented in school.
No, no
Like,
school. Well, in those days, and I don't know what it's like in California now, but
mm-hmm.
they had totally defunded any after-school activities. There was no
Oh,
football, there was no any sports, no music activities.
yeah.
So, and that wouldn't have been a mariachi anyway.
Yeah.
What district is going to pay for Mexican music?
Yeah.
They were going to have an orchestra and a band for the football game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there were some groups that came in at that point,
Right.
and eventually there started becoming they started having mariachis in Tucson, and we went out to their school and we got to know those kids. That was really important for me to meet other kids their age playing mariachi music.
I think that's the biggest thing because I know me as a kid, when we started learning in the classroom with you, I think what the biggest things we did was I don't think we even did competitions when I was in you. I
No,
mean, we probably didn't have a full group too, but I mean, we did do some gigs. Like all we knew was going to a gig in Fort Worth, play a gig here and there, performance with your classmates. But like finding out, I mean, now with social media, you can literally look up my like hashtag mariachi, you find a bunch of kids. But I mean, that wasn't around back then. So it's the only kids that you knew that played mariachi were the kids that were in your class. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until
yes.
later, social media starts blowing up, and you start being able to see other stuff. I think the biggest thing I remember too. I think when I was a freshman, you were there too. We went to watch Vargas in Dallas, and we went with Northside. But I remember that was the first time I've seen Vargas at all. Like just a big group, play something big like that. And it's just seeing that as a kid, you're like, whoa, it kind of blows your mind. Not so much because like it's like literally seeing like the people you hear on the tracks and stuff like that. That's the biggest thing because that inspires you to be like, whoa, like you can do that with mariachi, or you know what I mean?
You're just kind of like, oh,
That's
that's
what
how
it's
it
supposed to
sounds.
sound
Yeah,
like.
that's what it sounds like. You're like, oh, okay.
Okay, this so it all fits together. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I gotcha, I gotcha. But yeah, it's like you said, like you stress that, like seeing that in a conference, seeing other kids that are interested as much, especially if you're invested in it by that point. Like you're like, I like mariachi, I like playing mariachi. I want to see bigger groups. Like knowing probably those kids that saw Cobre for the first time were like, whoa, it's kind of like I was with Vargas. So the first time I saw them, it just became a big thing. I was like, man, that's so crazy. It really blew my mind seeing something like that structured and organized. Like, whoa, you can sound
Yeah.
like that with 12 guys on stage. You know what I mean?
Well, what was amazing about Mariachi Cobre
Mm-hmm.
is we would go back to Austin, and Randy Carrillo, the guitarron player,
Mm-hmm.
would know Richard was our guitarron player. He would say hi, Richard, and Richard would just be in heaven
Right.
because the guy from Cobre knows my name.
Right.
And each of the guys in Cobre was that way with our kids. And
That's awesome.
it was just fabulous. And then they started having the big conference out in Tucson,
Mm-hmm.
and Cobre, of course, was there as well. And just having gone to with the middle school down to Austin to the conference, and
Right.
meeting Cobre, and then still working with them as a high school student in
Mm-hmm.
Tucson. I mean, it was so cool.
Yeah.
One year we were in Tucson. A buddy of mine, David Membrilla, had a group. He was a sax player. He was a band guy,
Mm-hmm.
trying to learn how to play vihuela. He was obviously Mexicano, didn't
Okay.
speak much Spanish, but he was the mariachi teacher because he was the
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic guy. And he said to me, "Is it true you guys just came on 18 hours on the bus from Texas?" And I said, "Yeah." He
Man.
said, he goes, "Maybe you think I'm crazy." I just met the guy in this
Right.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He says to me, "So do you have that bus here, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I tell you what, the custodian from the high school, his wife's birthday is today. And if we could get all my kids and all your kids onto your bus and drive down into the barrio and pull up in front of the house and I'll play Las Maninitas for the custodian's wife, he will be golden and she'll be in heaven."
Mm-hmm.
So we did it. And so we get on the bus, and of course, all my kids are at one side of the bus,
Uh-huh.
and wearing blue. We had blue trajes at the time, and they're
Mm.
wearing red.
Okay.
And it was like two terrified bunch of little kids. And we get to the backyard, and we played something, and then they played something,
Mm-hmm.
and then one of my kids says, "Hey, that kid over there says they know Los Laureles. What key? They know it in Sol Mayor. Okay, let's play it together." By the end of the night, we were playing songs together. Kids were coming up to me and saying, "Hey, they want to learn Sopilote Mojado. Um, if we give us the if we give them the arrangement, they'll give us, whatever. I can't
Yeah.
remember what song it was. I do remember they wanted Sopilete Mojado.
Yeah. It was like a
So
trade. Yeah.
they had a blast.
Uh-huh.
I would always make the kids every year when we got back from our trip, we'd go back home and I'd say, you need to give your teacher, your English teacher, an essay on where we went because you missed school.
Yeah.
And I said, write what your favorite thing was. We had gone to the Silent Heavy Admission. We had gone to, it's Tucson Convention Center, seen Mariachi Cobre, Mariachi Los Camperos, Mariachi Vargas on stage. I don't remember who. Guadalupe Pineda one year was the guest. Linda Ronstadt lives there, so she was always there.
Right.
We went to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum. I asked the kids to write what was their favorite thing. You know what it was?
Mm-hmm. I'm
Playing
guessing
in the
the
backyard with those other kids.
Yeah.
And it was always that way. We
Yeah.
went up to the state of Washington and played in Wenatchee. It was
Mhm.
my two groups and their two groups. And the favorite thing was when we played with those guys.
Jamming with other kids.
No other kids that play mariachi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, that's why a lot of. I mean, I know for me, like when I was younger too, when I would go to, like the bigger conferences I went to was Albuquerque, but there my favorite thing was the jam sessions because I mean you're playing with other kids and it's not just that, like everybody has a certain level of where they're at, musically, it challenges you at the same time. You're like, oh man, like that guy can play pretty good. Like, I want to play that pretty good, but not so much to beat him, more like I just want to be better. I want to be a better musician. You know what I mean? And just having like just good times with other people. I mean, that's fun. That's what I miss about doing those kinds of things. But it's good to know that the kids back then responded the same way. You know what I mean? Especially to like
Oh,
things like that.
absolutely.
They're playing in a backyard, and they're just like, yeah, this is the dopest thing ever. Like that's cool. So
Yeah, and we didn't have to eat at McDonald's that night.
what'd y'all end up eating?
Oh, I don't know if it was fajitas or whatever they had, but it was somebody made it in the backyard, and
Yeah.
it was comida mexicana. It wasn't,
Yeah.
Oh, so
our
it was
our
a full
budget was
cookout,
Taco
right?
Bell,
Yeah.
Waffle House.
Yeah, right. So they got to
So,
eat some good stuff.
but hey, those kids over the years,
Hmm.
we went to Tucson any number of times. We went
Right.
to Fresno to Mariachi Conference. We went to Albuquerque when Albuquerque first started.
Hmm.
We were in LA several times. Um, we went to Seattle twice, well, to Wenatchee, Washington twice.
Yeah,
We
right on.
ended up going to Guadalajara three times.
Oh man.
We went to Budapest.
Man.
Um, we were playing for free one night at the Fort Worth Zoo. A year later, the lady from Fort Worth Sister Cities calls me up and she said, "You remember you played at the zoo?" And I
Uh-huh.
said, "Man, we played at the zoo a bunch of times for a bunch of different groups." She said, "Well, this was for the Fort Worth Sister Cities. The mayor of Budapest fell in love with you guys. He wants you to come to Budapest." And I'm
Oh
like,
man.
"Yeah, what are we going to walk or what?" She said, "No, they're paying for the flights. They're paying for the hotels. They're paying for food. They're paying for 10 days."
Wow.
And
Where was
I
I?
mean, think about it. So many kids got to go to LA, they got to go to Budapest, they got to go to the
Yeah.
state of Washington, they got to go to Guadalajara in 4 years.
Right.
I mean,
Man.
So whenever you started the program to those times, how long was it? Did it take for the program to grow that much?
well, the district wasn't supplying anything.
Mm-hmm.
We bought our own uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
We I had a parent organization, which was all the parents. We
Mm-hmm.
made a deal. If your child decides to leave the group,
Mm-hmm.
you can make the decision. You want to take the uniform because the parents paid for half of the uniform and the gig money paid for half of the uniform.
Right.
And so if the child was going to leave, you could pay us for the other half of the uniform, or if you didn't want it, we'll pay you for the other half of the uniform. So at least we'd have, something that looked the same. We wouldn't have to get new ones every year.
Right.
Um, Kids started getting their own instruments. I drove to Guadalajara every year. I drove to Michoacan, to Paracho, to buy guitarrones and vihuelas.
Yeah.
Um, and the district never paid me for those.
I mean,
Um,
all the instruments that were there, there at the were yours, right? Because I remember you telling us those stories, like the vihuelas, the guitarrones. You would tell me, yeah, like I went over there and I bought them. Like these are mine. I was like, man, that's
well, I
crazy.
got
Like,
pictures of the guys making them as well.
yeah, that's
Hey,
crazy.
I gotta tell you this. You and Pepe were talking about the green vihuela.
Oh yeah, that was I love that vihuela, man. It was
Okay,
so
you
great.
should know that there's a matching guitarra de golpe
Yeah,
And there's a
Yeah.
I remember.
matching, and you know that Sam, I mean Victor, that there's a matching green guitarron.
Yeah.
Right, all three of
I
them.
played
Yeah.
all three of
Yeah.
them.
Well, that was something you guys weren't mentioning in your interview with Pepe, but
Uh-huh.
my job, what I felt like was my job was if you
Hmm.
played guitar, you were going to play guitarra de golpe, you were going to play vihuela, and you were going to play guitarrón.
No,
And that
yeah.
way, somebody calls you, you can fill in on four instruments,
Right.
and you're that much more valuable to a group.
Hmm.
And that's what
And
we do
you
now,
know,
to be honest.
Yeah.
try them all.
Yeah, because really, it's like you said, those four instruments, or us as harmonia players, like me, I started on guitar. Victor started on guitar, but
Everybody did.
right, everybody
Mhm.
starts on guitar, and then that leads into, because I mean, you could really learning guitar. You could, after knowing the knowledge that you have there, you can implement it, to another instrument. And me, I didn't start on guitarron in middle school at all. I didn't learn until later in high school. But obviously, everything I learned in guitar translates over. It helped me with that. And Victor, I mean, Victor plays harp, but he plays all the other four too, just like I do, and it's important that way because you end up learning not just one instrument. Oh, well, play me this sheet of music. Like, can you play those chords? Okay, cool. Okay, well, what are the notes in that chord that make up what you play on guitarron? Like, you have to make the connection between all of them, right?
That's true. Yeah,
You
because
know?
I mean, it's really helpful now
Yep.
because now, whenever we get called, because people know that we play the whole armonia,
Right.
they're like, "Hey, we need a guitar, well, Victor plays," or
Yeah.
"We need Vihuela, well, Victor kind of plays."
Victor kind of plays, but he
Yeah,
can go. He can go. But
yeah,
yeah, it's like you said. I mean, you're more valuable that way. Not only just playing the instrument, but playing it well, understanding the instrument. That way, you can translate it to the next armonia, which is your guitar, your vihuela, your golpe. And I think that's the most important thing. A lot of the times too, a kid will just learn straight on vihuela, and I'm like, okay, we'll play that on guitar, and they won't know, and I'm like, dude, it's the same thing. Like, like nobody taught them from that.
minus a string.
Yeah, just take off a string. I mean, you're good, and then you learn to use your thumb or whatever. But like it's all connected. You know what I mean? I think that's important. That's very important. To understand your instrument. And I feel like you did that a lot with us. You taught a lot to us,
I
just
taught a
in
lot
general.
of workshops at mariachi conferences
Right.
where kids didn't know that's an E string, that's a B string.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know the names of the strings.
Yep.
They didn't know anything but this is a G chord.
Yeah.
Dude, that's how
And
kids are right now.
And yeah, it has not changed. I mean, I have.
it was changed when I was there.
Yeah,
You had to know. And the
Yeah.
thing was, you think about this. I'm teaching in school. If you're
Yeah.
learning trumpet, you learn to read music.
Yeah.
If you're in the orchestra, you learn to play violin or string bass or cello, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you're playing.
Right.
You need to read music.
Right.
The district said to me, they need to read music, and I wouldn't have done it any different. I played
Yeah.
sax and clarinet when I was a kid.
Oh,
I played
nice.
drums in the high school band. I played electric guitar in the stage band, and I played baritone sax
Mm-hmm.
in concert band.
Mm-hmm.
But you needed to know how to read music. If you
Right.
could read music and you could play by ear, you got it all.
Yeah. And
But
I think, yeah.
there's
Go
no
ahead.
written music for vihuela. You don't learn
Mhm.
individual notes. It's a strumming instrument, so is guitarra de golpe.
Right.
So you learn to play guitar, and all the books are for classical.
Right.
So you
hmm
learn to play classical, you learn harmony, and I mean, not armonia, but you learn how harmony works.
Right.
And you can go from there. You can be a country western musician, you can be a classical guitar
Yeah.
player,
And
you can
and
do rock, you can do jazz, you can do whatever you want.
and you
That's up to you.
and you see that now because I mean we're on this path where we're mariachis. We play mariachi, but it's like you said, if you learned that theory when you were a kid, you learned how to read your music, how to translate, how to transpose, and all that. You can use that in other. A lot of your students may be playing in a Latin salsa band, or they may be playing in a rock band, and they learned that in middle school. You know what I mean? Like you taught them from the very beginning. This is what guitar is. This is how these notes relate to each other, how harmony works. And it doesn't necessarily always have to apply to mariachi. You can apply that to other genres of music. And I didn't realize that till later. You know what I mean? And I was telling Victor this, like, I still have your books somewhere in the house. I still have your books because I was like,
Well,
dude, this
that's
is
the three books that you have then. All the rest
yeah.
of your wife's.
All the rest of my wives. My wife has books that she actually reads, and I just look at the pictures because you had pictures in there, so I would just look at the pictures. I can't read. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. No, but yeah, I still have those books, and I was telling Victor, I was like, look, when I look at it now, I'm like, wow, he was trying to teach me so much, and I was just a little snot nosed kid, and I didn't even know how to like pay attention. But like looking back now, I'm like, man, all of this makes so much sense now. You know what I mean? Now that I have the experience, you know, I've been playing mariachi since that 8th grade year when I started playing vihuela. But I played, you know, guitar those 2 years before. But later on, I'm like, man, all this like is the stuff I'm using now, and I didn't even realize it
Yeah,
at
I
the time.
slapped him when he told me that. I was like, dude, like,
But
But
I'm
when you were
very.
talking with Pepe and when you were
Uh-huh.
saying you were snot-nosed kid, you
Mhm.
were a good guitar player, Sammy.
Oh man.
I mean, you didn't want to play everything that I wanted you to
Oh yeah.
learn, but
Yeah.
there's so much stuff to learn,
Yeah,
you
you
know?
never stop, and that's what I explained to Victor. Like it's, you could think you're good, and then you go to somewhere, and you just see someone so much better, and you're like, man, I don't know shit. You know, I'm still at this level. There's so much more you can still be learning. I
there's
mean,
always a bigger fish.
there's yeah, exactly. You do your best to, you know, try to keep up. Really, you know what I mean. But you, at the end of the day, you're always learning. You don't stop, right? You learn to not be complacent.
I think Dr. G gave us a very like well-round teaching of what we do, you know? Because
Yeah.
I remember with Dr. G, before even touching our guitar, he gave us like 3 or 4 tests.
Oh, right. You told
One
me about this. I don't really remember
one
it.
was about like the parts of your instrument. One was about like reading, how to read your notes. I remember very well.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 2 more. I don't remember those.
Right. Yeah,
You
you
had to
used
know
to
the
test,
notes on the staff.
right?
Yeah.
You had to be able to draw a G clef, which was a killer.
Oh, I don't remember that. I still can't draw one to this day. I'm sorry. I was like, it looks like a weird six.
You had to know how to take care of the guitar,
Right.
Right.
Respect your
when you
instrument.
change the strings, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What was the last one?
One of
Oh,
them.
you needed to know, you needed to draw a whole note, a half note, a whole rest, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I got to tell you guys,
Mm-hmm.
there was those 4 tests.
Right.
You needed to know those things, but what I needed to know was who you were. And what I mean by that is, are you going to be the knucklehead that I gave a $300 guitar to and it's broken 2 weeks from now? Or are you the guy that I probably should give $1.99 guitar to because I know it's going to be broken in 2 weeks?
That's
You know what
very
I'm saying?
true. That's
I
very
would know by the end of all that grueling crap that you had to sit through,
uh-huh.
which is boring as all get out. But by the time you did that, I knew exactly who I'm going to give this guitar to. I'm going to
Right.
give that guitar to. I mean, beyond just knowing who gets a 3/4 size and who gets a full size, but
Yeah.
I needed to know who to give the good instruments to because I could tell by your behavior. But I didn't
Yeah.
know that on the first day of school.
Yeah, exactly.
I also had to have a way of getting you guys to pay your $30. And the
I
district
did
was
my
Right.
wanting
best.
like $45 a semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I never ever charged more than $30 for the whole year
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want anybody, and there were a number of people that never paid anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want anybody not to be able to play because they didn't have the money.
Dude, I
Right.
remember I
But
had
I
to pay
wanted to
Dr.
give
G
them
with like
time to be able to do that
I
and for
remember
me to be able to know which instrument to assign to whom.
Right.
Dude, I remember I had to
And
pay Dr. G with like ones and like quarters because
Really?
I had to work for my money. So I was like, here's a 1, here's a 5. I have 4 quarters.
It was, yeah, it was all like it was a summation of all
Yeah.
the currency. It was like ones, two. You had a $2 bill in there. Oh man.
well, think about this also. That's the only money that I had to buy more instruments.
Right.
The
Exactly.
district never gave me instruments.
Mm-hmm. And instruments are expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you said, you buy an instrument, and then there's a kid who thinks he's like Slash or something, and ends up breaking his guitar. So you have to replace that instrument. You know
Even
what I
a
mean?
low quality instrument is like
Yeah.
$50, $100.
Yeah, a low quality instrument gets broken. You still have to give that low quality to a kid. You know, you still
Yeah.
need to end up giving that guitar to somebody. So I can see how grueling it could be. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, at the end of the year,
uh-huh.
all the band directors and orchestra teachers in the district
Mhm.
have to show, you have to line up all the instruments. You guys have been through that.
Yeah,
You got to show that if you had 25 instruments at the beginning of the year, you got
Yeah.
25 now.
yeah,
You know, I mean, I had more than that many guitarrones, but
yeah.
I drove to Mexico to get them. I went to
Right.
Yeah.
Paracho and watched them build them. The same with the vihuelas.
Yeah.
But by the way, the green ones, the 3 of them,
Mhm.
there was a fellow named Jerry Starr. He
Yeah,
lived
Jerry
in
Starr.
Albuquerque.
Right.
Yeah.
He was an aeronautic engineer.
What is that?
I mean, he worked at something like Lockheed in
Oh, okay.
Albuquerque.
Okay.
Airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But
Okay.
this guy decided he fell in love with mariachi music. He was going to build guitarrones, vihuelas, and guitarra de golpe.
Wow.
And I took my kids when we were in Albuquerque. We went to Jerry's shop. He showed us, he sprayed, varnished the instruments. He
Mhm.
showed us how he built the instruments.
Mhm.
And I ended up buying those 3 from him.
What?
Those are all,
Those are Jerry Star?
yeah, I
They're
guess.
3 Jerry Star instruments. And the
Wow.
reason I like them is because the climate in Albuquerque is similar to Texas in that it's really dry.
Uh-huh.
You buy an instrument in Michoacan where it's 1,000,000% humidity,
Right, right.
you bring it into a classroom in Texas, it's
Mhm.
only a matter of time before it starts splitting.
Yeah.
I mean, the wood is going to dry out, and but getting instruments from Albuquerque,
He's-
neither of the none of the 3 of them have ever busted.
Yeah. And
Dude,
and oh, do you have those? I mean, they're yours. You have
No,
those?
no, those are not mine. Those are at the school.
Oh, that's the
They
school. Oh
should
man.
still be there. They were there when I left.
Man, that's
No,
crazy.
the 3 hour set.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
I'm
and
like,
they were all green. Same, yeah, and it's crazy because
I
like
mean,
that.
you can't mistake them. They're all green.
Yeah, they're all green, and it's funny too because like I told Victor this, but when I got that green vihuela, I just liked it. Right, I always thought it was like the best one, so that's when I would play like in 8th grade.
dude, I would always play I would play all of them.
Yeah, you play
And
all
I
of them.
remember like we would have like other people, like other teachers walk in, like to
Yeah.
help us,
Yeah,
or clinicians,
you're right.
and they would play those instruments and be like, these are pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, but I didn't realize they were
Why?
that good. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's funny because like those instruments were just good. I mean,
Yeah.
they really got me started. Like that vihuela, that's the reason my first Morales was green because I liked that green color of that vihuela. So I ended up ordering Morales green, and it just kind of stayed that way. And then I sold it like a dumbass. But either way, I that's why I had the green one. I always liked that green one. It was so fun.
Mm.
But that's awesome. That's crazy. I didn't realize that you went over there to go get them. That's pretty cool.
Well, we went to Albuquerque to the mariachi conference. I
Right.
had been talking to him on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and we went over there and bought the instruments.
Mm.
I mean, I went over there. He told me how much it was going to be. The
Right.
good thing was I didn't have to drive to Paracho, Michoacan, to get
Mhm.
instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling at the time these are going to last because the climate is so much more like Fort Worth, dry climate.
Yeah.
But
Right.
also, I would be able to use Fort Worth ISD money on a purchase order because he was in the United States.
Right. That's true.
They finally started paying for instruments. They wouldn't pay for anything in Mexico.
Yeah, and that's still an issue to this day too. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the best instruments come from over there, and they
I
They
And
don't
then
let
you
them.
pay twice as much for half of it's for shipping.
Oh yeah, and then here they jack up the price too. I mean,
Yeah, I
usually,
mean they're more accessible now because there's other like little shops that will buy like instruments from Mexico and sell them here,
right?
but they'll be a little bit overpriced, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Well, they
and or
saved you
here.
the trip, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I'm still like I'm like thinking like I mean the trip won't be that bad. I mean, whatever. No, but I mean that's awesome. Just that those instruments. I mean you really did your best just to get them in the school with what you had. Which was just do your best. Kind of like you said, they put you in a closet and you just kind of started the program that way. But by this point, yeah, like you ended up in the girls' gym. That's when we came in. I mean, I started. When did you go to middle school? I started in 2006, I think.
well, I got here from Mexico like 2005, so like 2009.
So right away, almost you went into mariachi. And
Mm,
I think you said, did you have an interest in mariachi when you started, or was it
Well,
just
it's because I remember seeing like when I was in 5th grade,
yeah?
we walked to Elder
Oh, really?
to the auditorium, and I remember seeing like Karen and Pepe and Ivan were there. I think they were playing with the mariachi,
Oh,
and they
okay.
were like, "Hey, we have this program. You guys want to join?" Dr.G was giving like a little presentation
Oh, okay.
to the 5th graders about the elective. So that's when I was like, "Okay, I'll sign up." But for some reason, they didn't let me in the program.
They didn't let you in,
Yeah, I went to the advisor counselor.
counselor.
Yeah,
Sure.
and they were like, "We're not putting you here. We're putting you somewhere else." So I actually started guitar my 7th grade year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dang, you got pretty good quick. Because I remember, well, you were probably more inspired than I was. Like as far as like classical, I was never good at classical, Dr. G.
Well, I had
I'm
nothing to
sorry. I
do.
tried my best, but my fingers are not good enough. I'm sorry.
No, it's not for everybody, but you
Yeah.
learn to read music. You learn to have
Yeah.
an interest. You learn the coordination. By
Yeah.
the way, Victor, they never let me have kids from the language center until you came.
Really?
What?
Is that
That
what
was
they?
the first year. There was you. There was Juan.
Yeah.
There was that whole bunch of you guys.
Michael.
I remember, oh my God, Miss Fisher.
Yeah.
No,
She'd always tell me, I'm trying to get it so that they can have an elect at the same time so they can be a mariachi. And I
right.
said, I would love to have some kids from Mexico, but I never got them. And then one
Uh-huh.
year she came to me like in the summertime when we
Uh-huh.
were just going back to school. Bill, I can't believe it. You're going to get some of my kids this year.
Oh,
And
that's
you
what it
guys
was.
were the first ones.
Oh
Oh, because I
man,
never understood. They were like, "Hey, we're not putting you in this." I'm like, "Why not?"
why
We're
not?
like, "I don't know, but I'm putting your like math by art." I'm like, "I don't want to do that," you
I
know?
want to play guitar.
Yeah,
Goddamn it!
and then the next year, that's when they allowed us uh to be in the program, I
Wow,
guess. Because
you were first generation. That's pretty cool.
apparently, I
That's
didn't
cool.
know
Well,
that.
try to remember, I was always half the time at Northside and half the time at Elder.
Right.
Right, that's
So if
true.
I was at Elder only in the afternoon
Mhm.
and you only had an elective in the morning,
Right.
you know, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
And then there
Mm.
was one year I was at Poly, Diamond Hill,
Oh man.
South Hills, Northside, and JP Elder.
Wow.
So
So I
you were
mean, the
everywhere.
amount of time I was at JP Elder was very limited.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
you're
like
banking.
that's great. That's good, and at the same time though, because I mean, you were kind of spreading your influence to other parts of Fort Worth. I mean, you had already started what is now the Fort Worth ISD's mariachi program.
Yeah, because those schools have a pretty good program now,
Yeah,
or at least they're like more.
I mean, they just created that. I mean, they just built that mariachi center at Northside. I mean, they have a whole new classroom dedicated only to mariachi. And am I correct when I say too that you started the mariachi there at Northside High School too?
I was the only guy for like 20 years.
Okay, I just want to make
I
sure.
was
He's
teaching,
like,
listen, I was teaching mariachi at Northside High School before Nino was born.
Oh man, well,
I mean, think about it.
37,
That's
right?
that's
Yeah,
the difference.
right.
So
There's
yeah,
a big gap. Yeah, because I mean that's what I'm trying to say. Like you influenced not only just mariachi in Fort Worth ISD in Texas. I mean, the culture here in Fort Worth, for sure. I mean, every school within this middle school and high schools, in this radius of Fort Worth, like has a program now, or at least is trying to start one. You know,
yeah,
they're doing their best to find teachers, to come in and teach those programs and stuff
that's
like
been
that.
going on for 30 years. When
Exactly.
I started helping out at Poly was 25% Hispanic.
Hmm.
When I left Poly, it was 75% Hispanic.
whoa,
Oh man.
And that was maybe the course of 15 years.
Right. I mean,
I
there was
mean,
a
then
boom.
then they opened South Hills
Hmm.
and tons of Hispanics down there, but the
Yeah.
band teacher didn't want to teach mariachi.
I
And
mean,
so
it's
he gave the instruments away.
oh man, gave them away. Where was I?
you
He
can
gave
do
them
that.
away.
You can do that, but aren't those like school instruments?
I don't
I mean,
know.
he just signed him over. He signed him over to Rosemont. Oh, by the way, I was
Oh,
teaching at Rosemont
Oh
every
man.
Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30 in the evening
he's
Well,
like,
you
by the way,
because they didn't have anybody at Rosemont that
busy
would do
guy.
it.
Busy guy.
And Rosemont's always been so heavily Hispanic. So I
Yeah.
would teach the kids after school there.
Oh,
mm,
okay. Cool. I
But
mean,
I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, these kids really wanted to do it. They only saw me
yeah.
once a week,
Hmm.
and they had to wait till. I mean, I would get out of JP Elder at 4:30, and I'd
Right.
have to fight rush hour traffic to get to
mm.
down to
Right.
Rosemont. So I get there 5:15, 5:30,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we would be there till 6:30.
And that's why I say we were blessed to have you as our teacher so early. You know what I mean? Like, and I think I
Well,
speak
thanks
for
for
other.
saying that.
And I feel like I think we're not the only two to feel that way. Just because, like I said, who knows what I'd be doing at this point? You know what I mean? In this point of my life, and Victor too. He might not even be playing at this point. He would have stayed in the language center kids and been a math by art
What
major.
you thought I would never learn English or what?
I don't know,
This
dude.
guy.
I don't know. I don't know where our lives would have been. You know what I'm saying? But we took an early interest because I remember too. You mentioned that you saw me as a kid, right? So, and I've said it on this podcast before. What influenced me to get into mariachi wasn't even mariachi. I wasn't trying to get into mariachi. My family doesn't come from mariachi. I mean, I'm Hispanic, but that's not what was playing at my house. You know what I mean? They were playing like norteño music. So when I came in because of Guitar Hero. I loved Guitar Hero. It was fun. I wanted to play electric guitar. That was my goal. So I'm pretty sure you remember me in class playing like Iron Man or Smoke on the Water. I was always playing those licks as opposed to playing classical, exercises and learning my notes properly. I'm pretty sure you remember that, and that wasn't what I
Dude,
was.
you were playing Twinkle Twinkle.
Well, I learned that one, right? I learned that one because of you. So that's
But the
good.
idea was that you could read the notes and
Right.
take it where you want. I tell you what,
Exactly.
over the years, people would come into the restaurant. I'll say it, they're my kids. They're
Mm,
now in their 50s, some of them. But
yeah.
they'll come into the restaurant and I'll say, "Hey, what are you doing now?" I'm I work in a hospital. I work here.
Right.
Whatever.
Uh-huh.
I've had a ton of people say, "I am the music director at my church."
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I started playing, and now they play keyboards. Now they play whatever.
Right.
Um, but they'll say to me, "I still have your book, and
Mhm.
you're the only guy who taught me about being Mexican, about Father Hidalgo, about Dia de los Muertos, about Josefa Jimenez, all
Yes.
of that garbage that I gave you guys, but it wasn't garbage. This
Uh-huh.
is what people remember."
Uh-huh.
And I've had kids come back and say, "Can I get another copy of the book for you? Because mine's worn out. I want my grandkids." And
Yeah.
they're not playing an instrument. They
Yeah.
just want the cultural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you say, most people around here don't come from mariachi. When I
Uh-huh.
came to Fort Worth, there was one mariachi. There were 5 guys. They were all in their 70s. They almost
Mhm.
didn't play at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is not mariachi territory. At least it wasn't then.
It wasn't then. Yeah.
But that was good for us too because we were the only mariachi in town. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to compete with guys like you now. We
Oh,
didn't have to
sorry.
compete with the older guys.
Right.
We were it. We
Mm-hmm.
also Mrs. Hada, our principal, I had her for like 13 years. She would
Right.
say, "You guys also have the cute factor. You're
Oh
young
yeah.
Kids.
kids,
Yeah.
and older Hispanics are just they love to see younger Hispanic kids doing Hispanic stuff and being proud of it."
Yeah, mariachi. Yeah.
That's where we made the money for our instruments. That's where we made the money for our trajes, and that's how we got to go to Tucson we went to Disney World twice,
Mm-hmm.
Guadalajara 3 times. I mean,
Yeah.
the district never paid for any of that.
Yeah.
And I never made nobody stand on a corner begging.
Yeah.
We played an average of 100 gigs a year.
Oh man.
Think about that,
Heavy.
man.
Heavy. Yeah.
I remember our 8th grade year. I think we learned like a full hour of repertoire.
You guys actually get, I mean my
Yeah.
year we gigged maybe a little bit, but not so much. I think you guys
Yeah.
were better than us. We fed into
I
Northside,
don't know about that. I just remember
but
we gigged a lot and we learned a lot of
yeah,
songs.
you guys were doing a lot, you know what I mean? And really Dr.G made that a lot of that happen. Like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, who knows what would have
Well,
happened
it's
if they got
because like at the same time Dr.G did explain a lot of what mariachis were supposed to do. Because he showed us like what a show mariachi was, and then he's like, but there's also like un mariachi talonero, that
yeah,
they kind of like have to learn a lot of songs and they have to learn to play their instrument or different instruments to
right,
kind of keep getting work.
right.
So he kind of put that in our head because that's the reason we learned an hour of rep. To us that was a lot at the
Yeah,
time.
right.
We learned like
It is a lot.
Mm-hmm. For
yeah,
Think
kids,
about the
yeah.
high school band. They play an 8-minute halftime show.
exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have their little music stand, their little
Right.
lyre on their instrument.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mhm.
guys had everything memorized an hour.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. We memorized
And
it.
that takes a lot,
Yeah.
especially for like a kid, not to say like a kid can't do it, but I'm saying, they got their brains are still
Yeah,
growing,
it's because you never seen it.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
you said to see
Right.
Vargas or someone like that. It's like you never seen it, so you're like, dude, we played an hour. Like we can do
Yeah,
that.
we can do that. Yeah. Blows your mind a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we did an hour because people would ask for an hour. They
Yeah.
didn't usually
Yeah.
ask for an hour and a half.
Right.
If they did, I would say, we'll take a 15-minute break and then we'll fill in the next with songs we already played.
Right.
And everybody would say, "Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's it. We could do a 2-hour gig that way.
Right.
We just play an hour, take a 15-minute break, and then play another 45 minutes, which is the same songs we played before."
Right.
Yeah, I
You know?
remember doing that, just repeating like songs.
Pretty the songs.
Or we would do like
I
Mother's
never
Day.
once had anybody say no. They always said, "That's great."
Yeah.
Oh,
And they
that's
wanted you guys.
that's
And they
that's
also
awesome.
wanted you guys because we showed up.
That's true.
What does
you
that
can
mean?
you can rely on the kids
Oh.
to get there. Not like us where we get to the
Oh,
gig
Mom
like
was
30
driving,
minutes
right?
an hour. Right?
Huh?
What was that?
I'm sorry.
I said Mom was driving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's gonna get you there on time. Yeah, most likely.
We need to get there at this time, and we need to get home at this time because Mom's got 3 other kids.
Right.
And sometimes they were in the back seat.
Yeah. She's watching.
Yeah, just watching like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
We got to get there on time. No, but I mean, yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted you on here because I was like, look, maybe I don't know how it is in other schools. You know what I mean? I can only speak on my experience and then Victor's experiences. Like we can only say so much of what we actually went through, as kids. So we would run into kids like that. They didn't know their music or they didn't know how to. You tell them what note is that, they're like, "What? I don't know. I know how to play a G chord." And sometimes I feel like it's not stressed as much, right? Like,
Yeah, like that's the thing I appreciate a lot. Like
yeah,
Dr.G taught us like we started with guitar and we learn basics. Like we don't just learn chords, we learn like
notes.
fingerings, finger positions,
Hmm.
and he even challenged us with other classical pieces. And then
You for sure, because you were good. Like that's how I say.
I
Like I
don't know
wasn't.
about that. Anyways,
But you were
and then
playing like solo, like you were
still
playing. So,
waiting.
do you went to? No, yeah, that was later on. But you were playing like solos, guitar solos,
Yeah,
right? And he stressed like that you could get like, was there like medals involved? I remember in middle school there was medals involved.
medals.
Yeah, you would play like a piece. I remember one time because I remember I did the piece and I got like a 2, and I didn't get the cool medal. But it was in middle school. I don't remember. It was in the mariachi room.
Victor,
Like
you
Oh,
somebody
remember
came.
playing Asturias?
Maybe you probably. I wasn't that. Like I said, I was not. I
No,
was not.
Victor played Asturias,
Yeah,
and I made a
Victor.
mariachi arrangement for it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Did
Don't
you
you
play?
remember, Victor?
yes,
8th grade year.
yeah.
He's like, I don't want to talk about it.
No, Victor was awesome.
That was my
Yeah,
peak, right?
that's where Victor peaked. That's where
Yeah,
you
I remember
peaked.
that. I remember I really enjoyed classical. But that's what I'm saying, like
Hmm.
learning stuff like that really gets you to know your instrument.
Exactly.
And then he was like, okay, well, you know your rest stroke, free stroke, how to play certain things. Now let's learn chords,
Yeah.
and then you learn how to strum. And then you're like, these people like kind of made this up. Then he talks about like Mariachi Vargas, Jose Alfredo,
Right.
like
So, and then we haven't even gone into that, but this, we've gone into just music. That's crazy, and it's been an hour. But you are also a mariachi historian. Not only were you teaching us, about our instrument, how to play our instrument, you were giving us the history of it, and I feel like that's equally as important as
yeah,
what we're doing on our instrument in real time, at a gig or anything like that. I think the biggest thing, I ask a student, I'm like, hey, do you know who Pato was? Do you know who, like our guest on here, Tony Zuniga, who came later, but do you know about Silvestre? Do you know about Gaspar?
that's
All
fine.
these guys that influence the instrument that you play, and they're like, well,
Yeah,
no,
that's what I was getting at. Like you learn how to strum, and then he tells you like, these people are kind of the ones that brought up these or recorded these certain recordings that made
yeah,
it popular.
right.
That every mariachi plays now.
Right. They came up with these strummings. Later on they become uniform. Like a son jalisciense. Tan, tarara, ta, ta.
Right.
Well, do you know that before it wasn't as structured. Like what led up to that point.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what I mean?
what because now when you play, you're like, oh man, like these people used to play like that.
Right.
So that
Right.
kind of puts more. It makes you more involved. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, at least for
Exactly.
me, that's what it did.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that's why I say like it's equally as important for not only for you to know your instrument but also understand mariachi, and you are the expert on that. I really stress that you are the expert on that. I mean, like you said, you have all these books, you dedicated your
I
life
am
to
an expert.
it. Yeah, you are an expert, right?
No, there are a bunch of others now. You guys probably know Jonathan Clark from
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
California.
Right.
He studied mariachi history for quite a while. But for the last about 15 years, there's been a conference down in Guadalajara.
Right.
And I know Victor's going to laugh, but a bunch of mariachologos,
Right.
guys that study mariachi.
Okay.
And some of them are sociologists, some of them are geographers, some of them are historians, some of them
Mhm.
are anthropologists, ethnomusicologists. Um, there's a lot of young guys working in their BAs that are
Mhm.
studying mariachi.
Mhm.
Y'all know who Jesus Jauregui is?
I've heard that
Mm,
name.
I've heard about him.
Jesus Jauregui is the expert. I am
Oh.
an expert.
Oh,
He's the expert.
he's the expert.
You guys, if you don't have this book,
Oh, I've seen that book. You have that book.
this is a killer book.
Yeah.
I call it La Biblia.
Oh.
I mean, just among other things. I mean,
Mhm.
there's Mariachi Vargas, 1931.
Man.
But this book is the history of mariachi, every aspect you can imagine of it.
Mhm.
But it took him 10 years to get UNAM, Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico,
Uh-huh.
to accept a doctoral dissertation that was on the subject of mariachi,
Wow.
because mariachi no vale nada.
Mm.
According
Los
to that.
mariachis son
Yeah.
los señores de la plaza, los esos músicos.
Right.
I mean, he spent 10 years just convincing them to accept his dissertation.
Wow.
Now there's guys with BAs doing that in Mexico. And I mean, Jesus is now, I guess, 72. He
Wow.
just retired.
Mm-hmm.
And he works
Wow.
at the Instituto Nacional de Antropología e Historia.
Wow.
There are a lot of students now that are studying either with him or studying. He's got over 150 publications about mariachi. I mean, articles and books. I mean,
Right.
the guy's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I had the good fortune to meet him at a mariachi conference in San Diego. He invites me to his house. We go off into the mountains, and probably next time I'll show you some of those pictures, since we've been going quite a while tonight.
Well,
But there are a lot of people now. We meet in August every year in Guadalajara.
Wow.
And now there's an organization called CONASAN, which is Consejo Nacional para la Salvaguardia del Mariachi,
Mm-hmm.
to promote mariachi music, to study it both in the modern version
Right.
as well as the historic version.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people doing it.
Oh,
So in the United States, there's John and myself. There were 4 of us on the whole conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus and I were 2 of the people.
Right.
Now there are 4 days of 10 speakers a day. So it's getting pretty good. People are really
Right.
into the study of mariachi. And like I said, both modern mariachi, historic mariachi, mariachi in France, mariachi in Italy, mariachi in Chile, mariachi in Australia, mariachi in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really pretty cool.
So, like you said,
So I go down there and I find out how little I really know.
and like you said, I mean, you never stop learning. You know what I mean? So with this is a good
Absolutely.
this is a good segue into this will be the end of this part 1 of the episode with you, Dr. G, and what we'll do is we'll go into your PowerPoint for the next one. Can we do that?
Sure.
Cool.
It's not so much a PowerPoint as there's a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
That I figured it would be much easier for you and your other viewers
Mm-hmm.
to get an idea what it's like. Because
Okay.
when I went to Mexico, they were like treating me like I'm some big shot. And I got there and I had never seen trajes like this. I'd never heard those sones. I'd never heard those polkas. I mean, completely another world of mariachi that I was completely unaware of.
Right.
And it's really cool, because if you think you know lots of, you guys love sones, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine there's as many that you know that you
Mhm.
don't know? I mean, there's that many more you can learn.
Right.
I mean, I love playing sones. Just think about it. There's
Yeah.
all these sones out there
Yeah, that people
that
don't know.
we in
about.
the United States, we don't know it because Vargas didn't record them.
Right.
or they would
I
never.
did a
record.
paper 2 years ago about being a gringo and you only know the music that Mariachi Vargas records, because that's
Mhm.
when I was starting, that was the only mariachi that we heard.
Right.
And I think you remember saying that those were like modern sones, right?
Modern.
Because they didn't. I don't know. I could be wrong. Because I remember him saying that Silvestre at the time would go to like a pueblo, and he would like hear like something, and then he would be like, "All right, el relámpago," you know. He would write it down,
Oh, really?
and then yeah,
I
because
don't know.
they're not his compositions, or are they, Dr.G?
No, Jesus Jauregui has found places and interviewed los viejitos that Silvestre would go, particularly in Nayarit and Western Jalisco,
Right.
because Silvestre's from Eastern Jalisco. Hear the local mariachis play. He'd learn the song. He'd go back to Mexico City, and with Ruben Fuentes, they'd write it down.
Right.
They'd copyright it, and they'd get the royalties. You know,
Smart.
and then the guys on national radio would hear it out in the pueblito, and hey, they were kind of proud that their song was being played, you know,
Yeah.
not knowing maybe that these guys are living in mansions and,
Yeah.
you know, they're still
Just
living in the
dropped my
pueblito.
style. It just took my
But
whole flow, bro.
But there's a lot of that. Canciones piratas.
Right.
You know,
Well, that's what we'll
but
do. We'll go into that so we can fully go straight mariachi history on this next episode. And I feel you have a lot of knowledge that people do either have never heard of, don't understand. You have that info, and we'd love to hear it again. Now that we're older and we have more, we pay attention a little bit better than sixth graders. So we'd love to hear it.
I'll tell you what, I had a blast doing it. I had a blast teaching you guys that stuff. I loved it because I knew Star Telegram reporters were going to come up to you and tap you on the shoulder and say, how does it make you feel as a Hispanic playing on 16 de septiembre and not going, what? And saying
What do you
something
mean?
like, yeah, Father Hidalgo did so-and-so and so-and-so. Or what does Cinco de Mayo mean anyway? Isn't it Cinco de Corona?
Oh man.
Oh
Um,
man.
and be able to speak intelligently
Right.
and proudly.
Yeah, you got to know your stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, really, I felt that I would be ripping you guys off if I didn't teach you those things. And if it was going to bore you, well, maybe I would give you as much as I could. I could see you guys there. I could see the eyes glazing over, and I would know when,
I'm like, you knew.
I probably went a little bit too long here and there.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? I felt like I would be ripping you off if I didn't,
Right.
I tell you what, the band director at JP Elder said, man, you're teaching them about the guy who wrote these songs, maybe Jose Alfredo in that particular instance.
Right.
So he went and did a cool PowerPoint and everything about John Philip Sousa, who wrote the march that the kids were learning.
Mm-hmm.
The instrumental music director from Fort Worth ISD saw the kids watching a PowerPoint and said, why are the kids not playing their horns today? He said, well, I'm teaching them about the composer, about the history of where this song came from. He said, if I ever see you in this room without the kids having the horns in their laps, you're fired.
Oh, man. What?
Music isn't just the notes.
It isn't.
You guys were talking the other day about kids singing Nunca Jamás, and they have no clue what they're singing. They got a big smile on their face.
Yeah.
I'm ripping you off if I don't give that to you.
Right. No,
Right?
and you need to stress that.
It may be boring at the time.
Yeah. It wasn't boring. It was more like I would rather be like.
We were just hyperactive.
Yeah, we're hyperactive. We don't have attention spans like now.
You were kids.
You were
Yeah,
kids.
exactly.
Yeah.
You were kids.
Like we were interested.
And I'll
but
tell you
we
what,
had a
I
short
could not have found a better job for me in the world. And I'll tell you what, being retired and a paycheck comes in, not what I used to make, but a paycheck comes in, and all I have to do is sit on my butt. That's the only thing that makes it any better. But I miss the kids. I miss doing it. I miss talking about it. But you guys are giving me an opportunity to do it again.
Yeah, and that's what we want.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, we'll set that up, and that way we can go straight into mariachi history, educate some people that maybe listen to this podcast for some reason, but educate them on what mariachi really is, how it came to be what it is. And I'm excited. We'll set that up, and we'll get you back here again, Dr. G. We appreciate you coming out and doing this. I know over Zoom, technology, it's a little, I still don't know what I'm doing with this whole podcast, with all these wires and stuff, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule just to
my
talk
pleasure,
to us.
guys.
I appreciate it, and we will see you soon.
And thanks to Amelia here who set the whole thing up on this.
Yes, thank you.
you.
Thank you for letting this happen, helping us out.
No, you came through.
You came through. Well, then we'll set it up, Dr. G, and we will see. And we will see you soon for part 2 with Dr.
Have a safe Thanksgiving, guys.
You as well.
You too, sir. Thank you.
We'll see you.
Right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Oh.